Welcome to the podcast, everybody out there. Welcome back. I'm one of your hosts, Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson. This is Strange Brew Podcast, and who am I graced with their presence?
Normally known as Horror Boy, but we're going to go for a UFO or Alien Boy today. Or sick, jaundice, chemo looking dude.
Yeah, we're messing around with some of the camera settings. I have for all the audio listeners, I have mine kind of said like cartoony, and then Aaron did it, and he looked like literally a tomato. You could only see his eyes.
Do you know, what sickens me about this is no matter how many times we mess with shit, it always seems to be me that gets the shit end of the stick. And either my audio sounds like dog shit or my camera looks like shit. We have the same camera, we have the same podcasting desk.
Yeah.
We have nearly all the same equipment.
We don't have the same microphone though.
No,
you went for the very expensive one.
I have that microphone you had, right? And it was completely fine. And in my head, for some reason, I was like, oh, if I buy the most expensive microphone that all the big podcasters have, obviously that'll make it infinitely better. It's been nothing but trouble since I've done it.
Yeah, so welcome back. Welcome back. I'm especially Canadian today. I actually am drinking Tim Hortons, not coffee, but tea in the generic cardboard fucking cup. Getting into some tea. Green tea is really good for you. I've been drinking a lot of turmeric tea to help my fucking carpal tunnel. So
now, is that actually? Did you go to Tim Hortons and get that, or did you have a cup and just made tea?
Oh no. Chelsea got me a green tea. She went out and she's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Nothing with caffeine in it." And I was like, "Actually, fuck it. Let's just give me a green tea." And then to make it even more Canadian, I have some cider. I have hard cider, crisp hard apple cider, or whatever it is. It's pretty good in my Strange Brew podcast cup.
And then I have, for everybody who wants to know, I have made in Ireland, Carrick Glen Stillwater.
Why do you drink bottled water, man? Trudeau would not be a fan of that.
I know, yeah. What's everyone always says to me? They're like, is it BPA or something that's in the plastic or whatever? And everyone calls me moobs. They say that there's estrogen and shit in that, and that gives you man boobs. So everyone says, "Oh, you're having another bottle of moobs, are you?"
That's fucking funny. I did not know that. But yeah, there's harmful chemicals in the plastic. And I'm at the point in my life where I think everything's trying to kill me. I read everything. I'm like, well, I was like, I'll just get this today, but I know that it's got fucking, because even like all the seed oils are really bad for you and all that stuff.
Do you know what's weird, right? I used to go around and say things like that. I'd be like, oh shit, I can't drink bottled water because of the plastic and I'll have moobs. But then I would have unprotected sex with skanks from the nightclub.
Yeah, and then you got
it's like, yeah. So
So welcome back. We have yet to really talk too much about aliens. And this is just it's a strange one. Obviously it'll dive deeper into other stuff, but this is the UFO sighting. It's the Shag Harbor sighting. Because shag means fuck, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Is that like a
just what they named him? I don't know. The shaggin' wagon. Actually, when I was a kid, I actually really wanted a shaggin' wagon. I literally wanted to get a hippie van, and I wanted a rotating bed inside of it. And when you open the doors, you had those beads. Like legit, when I was like 14, 13, I wanted that. I would call it my rape van.
I got a new pup. I got a new puppy like last week when we were supposed to record. I don't know if anyone will actually even fucking see this.
Did you make him an Instagram like we did for Charlie?
I didn't actually, not yet, but that's not a bad idea.
Oh yeah, he's cute.
He's tiny. Yeah. We called him Scooby. And then everybody was making fun of me. Like, I guess that makes you Shaggy then, does it? I was like...
Is that what you named him?
Which Shaggy now? Because obviously smoking weed and shit is illegal here. So Shaggy over here would have to be like disgusting.
Oh, you're the black Shaggy that doesn't do drugs from the new Velma show that everyone absolutely hates because it's a bunch of woke-ish garbage. I didn't even watch the show. I watched people react to it. And like I watched it. There's a chick on YouTube, and somehow I don't know how she does this, but she was able to show the episode while she was like commentating on it, and it seems like absolute fucking garbage. And this is the problem: you go woke, you go broke. Either way, if you go woke, people are not going to buy into it. But if you do the opposite, you might just be canceled. It's the world we live in today.
How where does this end? You fucking ruining Scooby-Doo of all things. Also, before I forget and before we move on with the episode. When you said about Chelsea going out to get you Tim Hortons, is that a thing that Canadians do as well as Americans? Like, that's not a thing here. Like, I would never, I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I've been like, I'm gonna go take a drive to get coffee.
It's almost an excuse to be like, I'm gonna go. She went to Sobeys, which is our grocery store, just to get something for dinner tonight. And then she's like, oh, I also want to just pick up a coffee. She's like, I might as well drive out there so I can get myself a coffee. Because she's obsessed with coffee. If she doesn't have it, she's angry. So
I was like that for a long time.
See, and I drink one coffee a day. That's it.
Same.
I would probably do mud water as I get older, but I already take a lot of mushroom stuff. So, but yeah, it's just it's an addiction. Let's talk about aliens once again. We're back. An extraordinary event in 1967 would practically put the small fishing town of Shag Harbor on the map. Good old Shag Harbor.
I can't help but laugh at that every time.
I know it is kind of funny. And I just down in like up in Nova Scotia, they all talk like this, eh? And they're like, I got some fish to catch.
I'm actually kind of disappointed you don't have that like generic like UFO alien music.
Oh well, we talk about it like we can put it in the background after, but I do have the for some reason, what is it called? Where is it like? We're talking about the Shag Harbor UFO incident. I heard kind of about this, but it is a pretty prevalent sighting. And Canada has like a database, which we'll get into on another episode, probably or something for the Patreon, where they like have a database where they've taken all the sightings of UFOs around Canada. And there's a lot, and some people really do believe in this stuff. As do this is a weird case because something crashed in the ocean and people fucking saw it. So let's get into it. Located at the southern tip of Nova Scotia, the rural community would be the host of one of the best documented UFO events of the past 40 years. Named after Shag, a bird from the cormorant family. I'm sure I'm not a bird expert, but I really like that movie with Steve Martin and Jack Black where they go bird watching, and Owen Wilson's in a great movie for a movie being about birds.
Also, when you're listening to this episode, anyone who has alcohol with them, we're going to play a little drinking game. Every time you hear something that either of us say about this case that sounds like any sort of sexual or has any sort of sexual innuendo attached to it, so whether it be shag or southern tip, anything like that, you have to take a nice big drink, everybody.
I'm getting really into like the ciders.
Oh, so nice. Cider's huge in Ireland.
And I'm not really like into beer as much. Like I will get a beer like on when me and Billy did Dark Disney. I was like, I'm gonna switch it up. I always do like liquor or something like that, or some like light like low sugar carb fucking drinks, just because it's easier on your gut and you don't get a lot of weight drinking like 5 of them. But I got more into last week of like I'm gonna keep some ciders in the fridge. We have some pretty good ones, and they go down smooth. It's delicious.
Yeah, there's is it Angry Orchard?
Yes, that's what I have. That's what I'm drinking. It's so good, dude.
Yeah, it's so nice.
That's literally what I'm drinking because I actually really like it. A buddy turned me on to it. Turned me on to get it.
A buddy turned you on.
But this was crazy. So obviously the harbor was literally left off most maps of the time, but that would change forever after this UFO incident. So this tiny fishing community has always had its stories of giant sea serpents, man-eating squids, because obviously when it comes to like fishing towns and like back in the day of pirate folklore, and I feel like some stuff like that. And like there will be an episode for the Patreon that will come out when we throw back to when we taught like a Lost Tapes episode. We talked about pirates, and I got pretty drunk, and it was the night that I almost died. So I feel like it should.
Pirate tattoo.
Yeah, so I feel like it should be justified on the Patreon, but I would like to dive back into a whole talk, even if it is honestly like a fun live show that we end up putting out on the main show also.
I have a really good idea. We all have to dress up as pirates.
Oh, I know, because Josh's like, how much money you can spend on costumes? I was like, probably a fair amount, because I already have like.
It makes me feel so good that you had suggested that once or twice about dressing up, because it's like, now I have an actual legitimate excuse to dress up all the time as a grown man.
I love it. It's a lot of fun. So, and I'm just this week I'll be prepping all my stuff for the Jimmy Savile episode, which will
I
be
got
a.
some of my costume.
Oh, did you? I said to Chelsea, I was like, I need to go to Value Village, which is like this place where poor people shop, and like you get coats for like super cheap. I
I
got to
look
get
fucking
my
scary, by the way.
Do you? I have to get my teeth and my like my jumper, like my neon. See if I can find like a neon suit or something like that. But I'm excited because I got to go through all the research. I have a lot of articles this week, so that will be fun. And I said to the boys, Anton and Aaron, I want to dress up. I want us all to dress up like we're emo. And he's like, "Why? Is there like an episode?" I was like, "No, I'll figure out what we're gonna talk about." But I just have the craving to put on a fucking like dress up like I used to. I won't shave probably because I'll look like I'm fucking. I will literally look like I'm 13 again. But I just I just want to dress up like I'm emo again, just for fucking fun.
The last time I shaved my face completely bare was like probably maybe 8, 10 months ago, and my 7-year-old boy was like, "Dad, please don't ever do that again." Like
Yeah,
to the point where I was like, "Okay, I got to drop you to school tomorrow."
like can you stay in the car?
Yeah, people who normally like bring him or whatever if I'm not
Yeah.
around or whatever. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm dropping you to school tomorrow." He's like, he was like, "When will your beard be grown back?" I was like, "I don't know, a few weeks." He was like, "Oof."
That's fine. Don't even get out of the car. So obviously, like Canada does have a lot of stories of ghost ships, especially in these towns. There's tons of stuff, like tons of ghost stories. Me and Billy talked about back in the day. Yes, Ghost Ship, your other tattoo, which is such a good cover, not a great movie. Because I rewatched it and got issues with it.
Doesn't hold up.
Yeah, but like there's all these stories. Obviously, if you go back, me and Billy did a Canadian ghost story episode. I think that's where the one I was on, where there's like a flying canoe. Like that's always
Okay,
fun.
is it
To,
weird?
yeah, I know. So in the list of local colors would see more one what the list of local colors would see one or more addition to its story. Its list, I guess. A story of a visit of a mysterious flying craft with unknown origin. Nobody knows. This craft would visit the waters of Shag Harbor, permanently stamping the village name in the public eye. And that's kind of like what made this place popular. And it would be kind of cool to go there and sit on the beach and stuff like that. I don't know what really else is in Nova Scotia other than like, I don't know, potatoes or something. Um, there is a there in some of those places there is a large Irish population, probably now generations down, but a lot of the Irish just showed up and they were like, I don't want to walk any further. This is fine. I'm too drunk to walk any further, so I'm just gonna station up here.
I mean, to be fair, we are kind of everywhere. Like we were like fucking, we infested the world like rats.
Yeah, technically. So the first indication of this mystery and this mysterious occurrence would come from local residents who noticed strange orange lights in the sky on the night of October 4th, 1967. Most witnesses agreed that there were 4 orange lights in that evening. 5 teenagers watched these lights flash in sequence and then suddenly dive at a 45-degree angle towards the water's surface. The witness was surprised that the lights did not dive into the water, but seemed to float on the water approximately 1/2 mile from the shore. So that was like fairly close to the shore, which is kind of crazy. This is like because then supposedly one did crash, which we'll get into. Um, Trying to pull up. I had the pictures of. Oh, there they are. We'll get into this, I'm sure, of one of the main photos, but this is one of the main photos that was taken on that night. And obviously this is in the 60s. So that's weird. That's like above the harbor. And it's like for all the like the audio listeners, it's like a purple light and a red light and like a dot. And there's so many weird UFO sightings coming out now, even where I heard about a UFO sighting in Iraq. I've heard that supposedly the Russians shot down a random UFO, but it could have been a drone. And now I've seen pictures come out of these weird cloud formations of like almost like holes in the sky. It's fucking. There's a lot of weird stuff going on lately.
How do you how do you feel about UFO sightings or alien sightings? So like for me personally, obviously I not to fucking rip off the X-Files, but like I want
Yeah.
to believe, I really do. But there's a part of it that like scares the shit out of me.
Me too. I want to talk about this on the dreams episode when we end up getting to that. But I take valerian root to
Hmm.
help me like get a good sleep, and it produces very vivid dreams. So me and Chelsea were in this 60s style house, and the weird thing, she had this same dream that night, or not like the same dream, but she also had a dream that they were in a 60s style house, which is extremely weird. People share events in the dreams. It's a weird thing, and I eventually want to talk about it. But and then we're in this house, and then I'm like, I see this like UFO. I'm like smoking a joint or something outside. I see this like UFO. I'm like, weird, whoa. And then I'm like, I remember seeing like Charlie on the ground, like just like looking up at me, and it definitely felt like a 60s vibe. And then I go outside, and I see like 3, 4 UFOs and just chaos and like pulling people like tractor beams pulling them
Hmm.
out of their house, and then like fire in the distance, like not really any power on that side of the city or town or whatever it was, because I don't recognize this place at all. And then I come inside, I'm like, we need to get the fuck out of here. And I almost remember seeing gray alien in my dream, but it's hard to recall. And then but it was like walking by and stuff like that, and I was like, that looks fake, that's not real. And like it was weird. And I've only had 2 dreams about like aliens and UFOs and stuff. And the one was like I was in this hotel room thing, and like I saw this UFO, and it was almost like a coast, like where you like, you know, some of those really nice resorts where they're all the buildings are around the coast of the water and stuff like that. And I saw this huge massive like mothership UFO. And then I was like, I had to go down this elevator, and it's so weird. I went down the elevator into this like shaft thing underneath the water, and I tucked myself in, and I shot out of this, like, never even seen this stuff before. Like, shot in this like little weird bubble thing, like almost like a craft into the water, and then like to this other building while there was water filling up, and I had to escape. And dreams are fucking weird, dude.
And you know when like you have a dream that like when you say it out loud, it sounds so fake and bizarre, but at the
Yeah,
time, it's like it feels like it's extremely real.
that felt real when
It's
those I
weird
saw
that
those
you
UFOs.
say
That
that
was
you mentioned valerian root. The first time I ever started to take that was on the recommendation of somebody else, about like not being able to sleep great and shit like that.
yeah.
And I had this really vivid dream that for some reason I was in like Thailand or somewhere like that, like backpacking for some
Yeah.
reason, and somehow I got like into trouble and I got roped into this weird like like that underground fight and shit.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was like somehow they were like all the locals were like making tourists like fucking fight each other or some
Weird.
shit. Kind of like they were like taking a hostage or something. But it turns out that then they would bring you away and like put you in these weird cages, and you would get like I got like shipped off somewhere. And then
Well,
like
that's
everything just
weird.
like yeah, everything goes to black. And then dude, I swear to God, right? And when I woke up the next day, I must actually find it because I had like a dream journal, and
I was gonna do that. Yeah.
I used to record all the voice notes on my phone.
Oh, that's a good
So I
idea.
have them all backed up. And I was in like a completely white room, and I was sitting like similar to, I guess, the idea if somebody was getting a back tattoo, they would sit
Mhm,
backwards on a chair. I was like
mhm.
in something like that, and like my arms and legs were like locked into this thing.
And then a guy
And
comes with a rope and starts knocking you in the testicles.
there was some fucking I didn't ever see it, but like at the time I think I felt like I knew what it was. Some form of like alien or aliens that had my entire back open,
That's fucking weird, dude.
and they were like doing shit to my nerves and stuff, and I could like feel it, and like my eyes were
That's
moving around
fucked.
and shit.
That's crazy. I do believe dreams can be memories from a past life. I do believe we don't understand dreams to an extent of what we know. I know it's like supposed to be memories and stuff like that of people you've seen, but I've seen people in my dreams I've never seen. This like they say, oh, it's it's faces you catch while you're just like walking in a store or whatever. But there's some people that have been significant in my dreams that I don't recognize them, don't know them. And then there's also the idea, right, that your soul technically leaves your body while you're sleeping, and it's creating these experiences and leaving you like there's a theory that they're just leaving you with some sort of kind of memory of what your soul is off doing. It's fucked.
That
It's
and also
scary.
it's something that we could talk about maybe in the future for an episode. Even if it's not main show, maybe Patreon or something.
Yeah.
There's several different like high profile stories of people like shared dream experiences where like thousands, millions of people across the world have all attested to seeing like a particular man in
Oh,
their
like the
dreams.
I want
Or
the Hat Man.
dude,
I actually want to
that
do
scares
an
the
episode
shit out of
about.
me. That gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, and even if we do it, maybe as like a YouTube thing of like talking about the Hat Man and stuff like that, because it's a strange. It's not too, but there's a lot of people, and I feel like I just was stumbling upon stuff doing research, and I was gonna write an episode about the Hat Man. Like I saved a couple articles of stuff we could talk about and kind of reach back to shadow people. But yeah, dreams are weird, and this is even stranger. So, all these people are seeing these weird lights and they're flashing in sequence. Witnesses were surprised that the lights did not dive in the water, but seemed to like float above the water, which is weird also. Witnesses at first thought they were watching, a tragic airplane crash and quickly reported as much as they could and as much as they remembered to the Canadian Mounted Police, which the RCMP is totally corrupt. Just so people don't understand, they work for the government now and not for you, which was located at the Barrington Passage. Coincidentally, the RCMP constable Ron Pound. That's another one. Take a drink.
Yep.
Ron fucking Pounds, man. Pound felt that he was seeing four lights all attached to one flying craft. He estimated the craft was about 60 feet long, which is the crazy part is also like the RCMP also saw this UFO. Like they also saw something in the sky, which is crazy because they also which is nuts to have a cop or someone, which this happened many times where cops have seen stuff where like, I can't explain it. It's fucking
I don't know. This shit just like freaks me out.
And I always I've thought that I was like when I was a kid I'd be smoking kind of drunk looking up the stars be like, oh, I'm different, and I would see UFOs or weird like a lot of times I talk about the stars I would see that rebobbing. You could see them change colors like red, white, or like red, yellow, blue, green, like all these different colors that star from so far away, millions of light years supposedly wouldn't really cast off it, but it might. But seeing it almost like where I'm like really watching it even next to like a tree or an object, and you can see like the bobbing like when you're fishing and that thing's just bobbing in the water. It's and to me it does freak me out to not know what the hell is aboard all these crafts, because I've seen weird stuff too where like I had like at one of the places I talked about in this podcast before, I used to live in this house it was on 13 Bailey Drive, and 13 is not a good number. A lot of bad memories and weird stuff. I used to play the Ouija board a lot there, a lot of stuff like that, paranormal events. And I was out on my we built like a deck that comes out from the top and it's sliding door, and we're out there. I was like smoking a joint, having a cigarette or something, and then I was like, weird. Whoa, there's like this really bright white light like in the sky. And like super bright, where I was like, that's fucking weird. And then I was like, yo, come look at this. And I turned around and my mom's boyfriend at the time was coming through the door. And I turned, looked at him and looked back and he was gone. And I was like, that was fucking weird. The thing was literally just, and it got brighter as it was coming towards me. And then I turned for a second and it was gone.
Not for me. That would make me shit my pants.
I do think it's possible. I do think we see some crafts that are human made to an extent. A lot of the silver crafts or the crafts that look metallic are probably from militaries around the world or whatever, but a lot of times I've heard that like there's a lot of UFO videos, you can look them up on YouTube and all over the internet, of like these crafts or objects or things they're seeing that are changing color. And supposedly somehow I can't remember, I watched this thing or read this thing about how they use like color hues to like they change color hues as they're like flying and stuff like that, and somehow it's like resonating with the frequency of the space they're flying in, like this anti-gravity kind of way. And it's weird because a lot of people see the same kind of ships where they're like, dude, like even almost like the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's like, and it's like making all these sounds and shit like that. A lot of people have seen weird stuff like that, which I would like to do for the Patreon. Even I would like to talk about that movie, do a comment, because that's a good kind of spooky movie about like extraterrestrials and not really knowing who is actually in the craft because they don't show it ever.
Yeah, and it's like and I don't know why, because there obviously is a lot of people out there who believe otherwise, but I always assume that any extraterrestrial, alien, UFO, anything like that is going to be hostile.
Yeah, and I try to think that it won't be, but at the same time, if there is things controlling, manipulating our Earth, they would probably be the first to intervene before someone else was coming to like, oh fuck, they actually like invaded or whatever, right? And there's like all these different claims from people that say they've seen that supposedly they have inside information that ships are coming from like, you know, fucking galaxies away or light years away, and that they'll be here at a certain date, and then it doesn't happen, or sometimes we don't know. And I've seen stuff, and I've always had the theory UFOs, which we'll get into eventually when we talk more about when we do our big alien abduction episode, which I already saved some articles for that of weird people's abduction experiences, and we can touch upon some of the more famous ones in short, but we'll end up diving into those. But that I think they sit in front of stars sometimes because we see things in that we see the way that the stars are laid out, and I feel like they would be intelligent enough to like sit in front of a star. So if their ship did emit colors, that it would just look like another star and it's sitting in the same position. You know, that's a theory I've had for a long time. That like, who knows? Because I've seen weird shit in the sky.
It just, oh, dude, it freaks me out because there's got to be something.
Yeah,
and it's just like I want
to.
It
Can't be the only living existing thing in the universe.
I just hope they're not scary motherfuckers if I ever do have to see them.
Witness Constable Pound made his way to the shore to get a closer look at the phenomenal sight. He was accompanied by Police Corporal Victor Workabeki, whatever, sure. Constable Ron O'Brien, oh, he's definitely from Irish descent, and other local residents. Pound clearly saw a yellow light slowly moving onto the water, leaving a yellowish foam in its wake, which I've also heard about these fishermen, I think they were, or maybe it was the Coast Guard, the one guy, because I watched a doc this morning, and it was like a 2000s documentary, and like just like you could tell it was like a 2000, you know, it was actually decent quality for YouTube and stuff like that, but because like this guy, they have a picture of the guy that the one teenager that later on in life he found the Roswell incident and stuff like that, and started getting obsessed with what he saw and like diving into it. I mean, witnesses there was, and at the beginning of the doc, he's just like on Shag Harbor, like just staring out into the water and just like on a rock. Just like that typical scene of like, I saw a UFO and it was at this very spot.
Yeah, that, and like any of those documentaries or YouTube videos or clips or anything about dudes or anybody who's been like, or who claims to have been abducted,
yeah,
or anything like that, they're the ones I think that get me the most. Because as much as they scared the shit out of me, I also kind of want to believe it's real. I don't know if you had seen as well. I think it was about a week ago that scientists, I think in India, they have some like crazy fucking telescope shit or something. They intercepted some radio signal from a galaxy like 9 billion light years away.
That's fucking scary. I just feel like it's coming with all the stuff. Like if I joked to my buddy that I was like, yeah, if I was religious, I'd probably think it's the end of the world. Because everything that's happened, I've seen like there's a lot of animals dying, fish dying, washing up on shore. I've seen weird videos coming out of China of all these chickens dead, which people I think they're going to starve out the world. There's a lot of scary things happening that people don't necessarily know about, and the people in power will stop at nothing to kind of enslave us, and that's my opinion. And it will be a slow, like boiling the frog in the water. But eventually, the more people that wake up, the more their plans are going to get revealed, and the more that essentially that they're going to push harder because they know the population is waking up more. And COVID did that; it woke a lot of people up. So it's gonna get
yeah.
sketchy.
That's really been like, I feel like the opening of the floodgates for like the more how would I like the more common person
seeing through all this bullshit.
Yeah, who may have, it's like you said, like, you know, about people, you might have a conversation about something and that guy said to you like, oh no, I just watch sports, I don't really pay attention to that. I feel like there's more people though that have been like that COVID has really opened their mind to go, oh right, the government doesn't actually give a fuck if I live or die, or I'm just here as like a fucking meat sack that can provide value, and then when I'm no longer needed I can just be killed off.
Yeah, and that's how it's going. And I heard that the Canada signed some sort of treaty or declaration with the WEF in 2020, and now it's coming out in documented proof and evidence that they actually did. And it's not a conspiracy, Because if you look and watch what they're saying, and you even look at their own website and you listen to their talks at Davos, yeah, it's fucking frightening what they want to do, because they're not going to do it themselves. They're not going to stop eating meat. They're not going to stop flying around their fucking jets or having a gasoline car, whatever they want, because they're in power. And people will start waking up. And I've said this, where people saw Trudeau came to a Hamilton near Toronto, and people were like freaking out, yelling at him, screaming. He's just like laughing, just waving. And obviously, this is a Canadian topic and stuff like that. But it's getting. And I made like a Stitch video being like, oh wait, I was like, eating a salad in my car. I was like, wait till it gets when people really have nothing to lose. I was like, we'll see how much chaos ensues, because it's going to get crazy when people really don't have anything, you know?
That's what I was just reading there a while back. That's fucking freaky. The US government logged 510 UFO reports last year alone.
Oh, what? That's a lot.
That are like, and they have like no way of explaining any of them. They actually have you can get a PDF online of the report. The director for national intelligence actually like released this.
But you think that they're kind of making way for like essentially what would be the last final stage would be Project Bluebeam, which eventually I want to talk about. Once me and Billy do chemtrails and HARP, I want to lead into talking about Project Bluebeam, because all three of those all connect. Of faking an alien invasion to bring apart a one world government, or bring.
You know what the worst part about this is? We are completely powerless in all of this, really.
Yeah, to an extent, but if enough people do, I do have faith in humanity, and then if enough people just like my whole thing is always like, whatever's coming, do not comply. Do not comply. If enough people do this and they start to wake up, and enough people to say no to whatever they're going to offer us or try to inject us with or whatever, if enough people say no, if they kill the whole population, they have nothing else to live for, because they use and control us, right? To fund their shit and to give them money, and to like they don't work. They take money off our hardworking backs and steal it through taxes and laundering money through Ukraine and all this shit. So they need us. So if enough people do wake up, you could see which I hope is true, where the consciousness of the planet raises to a higher vibration, and then the whole world shifts into a fourth dimensional paradigm, where essentially like you could anyone you talk to, you start to get into the thing of like, if it's psychic powers would end up coming into a thing where people could know if you were lying and tell if you were lying, so that politicians couldn't lie anymore. You couldn't have a structure like that, because people would see through the bullshit instantly. It's fucking crazy, man.
Just give us all guns and we'll just go out and kill all these people.
Yeah, I know. Someone's got. When they were at Davos, someone's like, Putin, you could drop a bomb anytime. Like right there. They're all in the same place. The RCMP ran. So it was weird, because they started seeing weird stuff. The RCMP saw these lights, and they did see the Coast Guard came up, and they saw this, like the foam. So Coast Guard cutter number 101 and other local boats rushed to the spot of the sighting. But at the time they arrived, the light itself was gone. However, the crewmen could still see yellow foam. And I saw the witness that saw this, indicating that I heard him talk about it, and indicating that something had possibly submerged. Nothing else could be found that night, and the search was called off at 3 a.m. This weird yellow foam was there. And the thing is, if you were smart, which they probably did, because they wouldn't tell the public if they did take a sample of it, test it, and was like, this does not show up like on anything that we know of on this planet.
It's and it's the same actually, and it's something I would love to talk about maybe down the line in another episode. There's actually a lot more sightings of UFOs in Ireland, and it's been talked about a lot more in recent years. And again, it just seems like I think the generic response is to be like, oh, it's some sort of exercise that's being run, or some sort of like weather a balloon or whatever. And then, like some other shit comes out, or people are like, okay, can you explain to me how a weather balloon can move like in these weird, like linear fucking...
They always say that after they say, oh no, like they come out, like especially like Roswell, you can go back and listen to me and Billy talk about that. But they say like, oh yeah, it was a weather balloon. But originally they said it wasn't. Originally they said it was a UFO craft, and then within a day or two, they're like, no, never mind. It was a weather balloon. For some reason, I've never seen one in my life flying around as often as they claim that weather balloons are used.
Strange, right? Isn't that strange?
So It is weird because like, and then the RCMP ran traffic checks with the rescue coordination center in Halifax and NORAD radar, and that was at Bacoro, in Nova Scotia, whatever that is, and they were told they were missing no aircraft. They were missing no aircraft reported that evening, or either civilian or military. Like, there's no aircraft that they saw or knew was flying around that area at the time, because you would be able to know when it comes to radar and stuff. And then Shag Harbor was on the map, obviously, the following day. The rescuer coordinations centered. The Rescue Coordination Center filed a report with Canadian Forces headquarters in Ottawa. The first stated that the something hit the water in Shag Harbor, and that was an unknown object, because people didn't really know what it was. They saw something come in, and everyone saw these strange lights, and then it hit the water, which is fucking crazy. And so it seemed like it dived in.
Like, again, I don't know. I just find some of the explanations are just very
Yeah,
generic. It's like, oh, yeah, it's probably like a thing. Like, but
100%.
how could all like from this alone, like you have there was the Air Canada flight, so the pilots from that said they saw something. You have people on the ground, just regular civilians seeing
Saying they
shit.
said something.
Yeah, like you've got
Or they saw, sorry. That's saying.
there's the fucking the I can't remember the name of the ship. Most of the crew had seen something like how is that possible that like why would all these random people conspire to be like, hey, let's make up a story about seeing some lights and some weird shit?
Yeah, I know. And that's what always the thing is too, right? And like, is how do all these people end up seeing the same event? And that's what I've said even about the reptilian shit, when people are like, you believe in fucking a race of lizard people. And it's just like, well, people across the world have had these events and seen these creatures. Same with greys and other aliens across the world that would have no contact with each other. And also in our ancient culture, it's everywhere. Everywhere. Snake in the Garden of Eden, serpent worship in Africa, the Ouroboros eating its own tail, knights fighting dragons. It's all there. It's fucking crazy. So soon, the story of the mysterious craft at Shag Harbor died as quickly as it began. That is until 1993, as an original story faded from the papers and obviously newscasts, because they were printing papers where it could be something concrete in Shag Harbor, UFO. Continue search today. So they actually had articles out at the time. Canadian Defense Department investigates UFO that dives in Nova Scotia Bay. It's like these are papers from the 60s, super grainy. And there was obviously, so there were several theories that were put forward. One explanation was that a Russian aircraft had crashed, which could explain the presence of the Russian submarine in the area, which is also weird. There was rumors of an American involved in the follow-up investigation, but there was no official statement from the United States as like if it was one of their crafts, especially at this time of like 67. I feel like the Cold War was still kind of like people were still scared, and Russia's always the enemy for some reason.
Yeah, you see, and and it's very hard to. I don't know. I find like a lot of times when you hear these stories, and it's not just UFOs either. There's a couple of other things that I've looked at, the likes of the Titanic and a few other things, and it seemed to me like that Russia is a really easy scapegoat to be like, oh, it was the Russians. It's
100%.
it's it's Russian drones and shit. Like even when I said there about there was 510 UFO sightings last year in the States that are like unaccounted for.
Mm-hmm.
And like the generic kind of answer they broke down was like, oh, 247 of those were drones or other weather balloons and shit like that, and
Yeah.
150 was something else, and it was this and it was that. And it's like, but even the ones we can't account for or we're not 100% sure of, we're not worried about it being anything other than like um spy spy equipment from other countries.
Yeah. And at this point, I feel like it's fairly easy to figure out what's going on with people on this side of the world, because there's so many apps and technology where you can see how that culture behaves.
So
So it
it's
is
like,
really weird.
and okay, so if you're that concerned about like their ability to do that, you haven't figured out how to be able to tell the difference between that and a fucking UFO.
Yeah. They know something's out there, and it's either like, when there's all these different theories, which I want to get to. Jesus, on we're gonna do a big talk eventually about Area 51, and all that stuff. But also, which might lead up to either one or the other, but I definitely want to do the whole alien abduction episode and go very deep on that because there's so many crazy stories of people that all have seem to have close to the same experience, people that are very credible, and
Mhm.
why would they need to lie, kind of thing. So it's fucking weird. So
But, like, and I can't remember what I watched a while ago. It could have been something that was it on Joe Rogan or something like that, and they were talking about UFOs and aliens and shit,
yeah,
and, they were talking about the idea of, I can't remember who it was they were mentioning, and it was someone, like, who's considered, I guess, equally as credible as he is, like, crazy. I don't know if
yeah,
it's like,
Chock filet.
who is the dude that Jeremy Corbell done stuff with? It's not
Oh,
George.
Friedman, Stanton Friedman, because he was
No,
connected on this documentary too, and they had him talking about. And a lot of UFO people look very frumpy. Like even the guy that we'll get into, Chris Styles, in a second.
but
And
like
there was
Joe
the
was
one
basically
teenager.
not to cut you off.
Yeah,
Like Joe was basically talking about the idea of like some of these people like it's like what did this person have to gain by saying all this shit other
yeah.
than the risk of being cast as like, oh, here's the fucking lunatic who thinks that he saw aliens, or here's the lunatic who says that he worked in a base, a military base that we're dealing with alien technology. It's like when you actually break it down and think about that,
Hmm.
it's like, uh, it, like
What do you
is
have to
there
gain
really,
out of it? That's
yeah,
what I'm
like is there
saying.
really incentive? Like, what's his name? And you know the story I'm talking about as well. The dude, he said that he was brought in to like reverse engineer all that
Oh,
extraterrestrial technology.
yeah. Why can't I think of that guy's name? I know exactly who
It's
you're
not. It's
talking
not
about.
George. It's not George Knapp. No, it's not. It's
No,
Bob.
Bob Lazar.
Yes.
Yes.
And like, look, I can't say some of the stuff he says is a bit weird, maybe a bit goofy, but like he, I don't know, it just seems weird to me. Like outside of like writing your first book or whatever and trying to sell that story, why
Yeah.
would you keep harping on and on and on about it, only for the world to label you as like some insane dude who thinks that he
Well, that's
fucking
true, and it's the same way you have like stuff like with people that have inside information about like some weird stuff going on with MK Ultra and all that stuff. Like technically, if I reach out to a buddy, I might be able to eventually get on Kathy O'Brien, the chick that claimed to have been like in with the Illuminati and used as like a sex toy essentially, and she knew Urim von Braun and what was going to go on with the coming Project Bluebeam and stuff like that. So like, in these people that they look crazy to the public and forever will be ridiculed. Why do you kind of want that for your existence here unless you're kind of being genuine?
and also that I think that suits the narrative.
Yeah,
The more crazy that you can make this person seem to the general public,
yeah.
the better for the cause. Because it's like, oh, that fucking lunatic. Yeah, no, don't listen to him. He's an
Well, that's
idiot.
why I've even heard that they I always make the joke about how there's always, like I've said this a million times, that it's always Jed down the farm, because like
Hmm.
essentially aliens would be smart enough to take people, which I've heard, that wouldn't necessarily be believed.
Yeah.
You know, it's fucking crazy. So the Shag Harbor incident would, it would have a new life breathed into it through the efforts of MUFON, of course, investigator Chris Styles. The case intrigued him so much that he decided to search for more details. Styles found the names of many of the original witnesses, newspaper clippings, and was able to actually interview them and kind of see what their story was. So Styles was assisted by MUFON investigator Doug Ledger, sorry, not Dodge. And this is kind of weird too, because I don't know if this is the same guy. It might be on the documentary I watched from 2000, but he was one of the teenagers that saw it, and he was 12 years old. And then his grandfather also saw it, and then like called him and told him about it or something like that. Like he's like, I also saw those those like weird lights, and then so he was more kind of convinced, and then he kind of like didn't really think about it for a while. And then Roswell came up. We read an article or saw something on it about Roswell, and then it made him kind of relive and think about what he saw and started doing investigation. So they discovered that when divers, and there was this ship that actually went down, and that's the one where they saw that weird foam, like, which is really weird. They saw like this gross looking foam, and I'm surprised they didn't actually didn't do anything with it, because like the HMCS Granby or Granby was ordered to the location where divers searched at the bottom and supposedly for several days and found nothing. But at the same time, if they did find something, would the public know about it? Not necessarily. All right.
And they're only gonna know whatever you want them to know anyway. So
Yeah. God, Charlie's eating my sock. Get away from me. So the divers, along with the witnesses, obviously, they related these events. The object that dove into the water, obviously, of Harbour, and then soon left Shag area. Nice. Traveled underwater about 25 miles to a place called the Government Point. That's a little strange, you might say. That's a little weird.
And here's another thing, right? With all this shit, and I just noticed that if you Google anything, any of these events or anything like this, and I know it's a very generic thing to pull up anyway, so I'm not saying by any means that it's like you can put anything on Wikipedia. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I've noticed like that if you look, like, I can guarantee you, let me do it right now. I'm gonna pull up the Shag Harbor incident on Wikipedia. I'm sure there's a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Okay. Okay, so here we go, right? So there we go, right? First thing on it, and I'm not saying this doesn't happen on lots of stuff, but it's just something to think about. This article needs additional citations for verification.
Of course.
And then it says this section does not cite any sources. Please improve this section by adding reliable sources. All unsourced material included here has been challenged and removed. Okay, so
Weird, yeah, of course.
right now, I'm not trying to be like the fucking crazy guy out shouting at the fucking wall or anything, but
yeah,
isn't it strange how anything like that is considered like, oh well, unsourced material, this doesn't cite any real sources. But if the government tell you, oh well, this is the way it is, like the COVID vaccine is 100% perfect and effective and safe, that's a source, and that's like 100% truth.
Well, now you see it all the time. No, you see it all the time now, and they want to construct a narrative, that the public will eat up and believe, because most people are gullible and most people trust authority, and there's people that have like subservient, not DNA, but thought processes. And it's not good, because you just get subdued and controlled by those in power, because if you seem like a lot of people, like, it serves them a purpose. There's a lot of people that don't really have a purpose, and they kind of, people that really don't care about really anything and stuff like that, they will feel a purpose is to be virtual signaling people. And we don't need any of you guys in our society. You guys can all fuck off a cliff, because you're going to make everything a lot worse for people that actually just want to live and cooperate and love their existence here. Because it's not good. Because the more we go into this whole idea of losing privacy, and the World Economic Forum is like, it's 2030. You have no meat, you own nothing, and you're happy about it, and you'll have no privacy, and you're so happy about it. It's like, I don't think anyone really wants that.
No, but you're 100% right. And people might say, oh, it's very off the topic. Not necessarily, because it all ties into all of this stuff. And it's like, whether it's UFOs, whether it's the COVID thing, whether it's the government, whether it's politics, whatever it might be, if you say anything that strays off like the well-worn path, it's like, oh, you're one of those fucking dudes.
And that's the way
they want it.
Yeah. And they created that. They created the SAP. The CIA coined the term conspiracy theorist and conspiracy theory to essentially discredit people. That's why it was created. And people need to start fucking legitimately waking up to this stuff, because it takes brainwashing one generation to change the entire world. So the divers, obviously, and all these witnesses that saw this weird thing dive under the water and then went to supposedly government's point, which was near a submarine detection base. The object was spotted on sonar there, and the Navy vessels were positioned over it. After a couple days, the military was planning on a salvage operation when a second UFO joined the first. The common belief at the time was the second craft had arrived to render aid to the first one, which is that's fucking crazy that they were like, oh, we're gonna come pick up this other one and kind of help it, which that ends. I've heard that in other UFO cases where you'll see if there's a crash or something like that, another UFO shows up and then it's all gone essentially. It's pretty crazy.
You see, again, like it's
It'd be fun to go here.
What do we really know?
I know nothing because
what the fuck happened?
We don't know what happened. So at this time, the Navy decided to wait and watch. After about a week of monitoring the two UFOs, some of the vessels were called to investigate a Russian submarine that had entered Canada waters. At this point, the two underwater crafts made their move. So they were watching these crafts move throughout the water. They made their way to the Gulf of the Marine and putting distance between themselves and chasing Navy boats, because as soon as it seems like maybe the Navy showed up and got close enough to the object where they were monitoring and moving, they got the fuck out of there. They broke the surface and shot away into the sky, which is fucking crazy. And how the whole UFO thing of in the water, man. Easy way to just disappear if their ships had that technology and capability.
And again, like it's this thing of like you can't tell me that there's probably a weather balloon or it's probably someone like again, weather balloon was probably okay for the time, but like even now I see this thing of being like, oh, it was probably a drone.
Yeah.
And
nowadays too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like nowadays they used a drone as like the new thing, and it's like, really though, is it a drone? Because and at least here in Ireland anyway, you've got to have permits and all now for you can do anything with a drone, and it's all this bullshit about that. So it's like no regular person seems to be allowed to fly a drone anywhere unless you do it illegally. So I can't do that, and I haven't seen too many commoners flying drones that have all this shit attached to them and like can fly fucking kilometers up in the sky
faster than jets and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that are chasing
come on, like
maneuvering
get me a drone that I can buy from the store that can keep up with a fucking airplane.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I think that people don't really understand what is out there. We'll never really know until it actually happens, because there's this idea of what is actually hiding in the water. The extraordinary events were corroborated by many witnesses, both civilian and military. Unfortunately, the reports were given an off record. It's off the record. A lot of them were given, like, they're not actually substantialized, and the government doesn't want to look into it. It seems like an ex-military personnel feared the loss of their pensions, and civilians witnessed feared, and they also, the witnesses that saw the stuff, obviously they feared ridicule and their privacy being invaded. So, and that's the main thing, and that's why they do this on purpose, because they want people to be in fear of being ridiculed and called crazy. Because essentially, if they do that, then you're not going to be believed.
Yeah, and again, this again a little bit off topic with the story wise, but it ties into the same kind of idea about being ridiculed and how easily it is to do it.
I look at and this will, like, I always try to make these little time lists, but the COVID shit, I'm like, sorry, but that's a big thing that changed our world forever. And even kids that may be listening to this, who knows, in 10, 15 years, it will have still played an impact on your lives.
Yeah, I mean, we have a talk show here in Ireland called the Late Late Show, and it's basically
how late is it? Is it like late?
Like 9 p.m.
That's not late.
And it's basically like what you would imagine it is. It's like one of those generic fucking like Jimmy Kimmel,
fucking awful.
Jimmy Fallon, like. But no, it's not as like happy, like goofy as that, but it's the same kind of idea. There was a woman on it who had been campaigning, I think, throughout Ireland about like she had been abused or some shit years ago, and just her story was kind of about how easy it is for like the likes of the church and all these different institutions to cover up shit. And she basically talked about like the first time she was ever like, I don't know, fucking molested or whatever by a swimming coach. It was like a really famous story. And this dude was like trying to like, I don't know, like finger or some shit in the pool when she was a kid and whatever. And she went to like the head of this school or whatever it was and told the guy. And he was like, okay. And he was like, goes over, he locks the door of the office. And he's like, what do you want to do about this? She's like, I want to report it. Like, I want this to be done. He's like, okay, well, I have some information about something that you may have been involved in. That could be much worse than this. So that's all going to depend on where we go from here. Whether you're going to, but it kind of shows you like what you're saying about being ridiculed or having a way to manipulate the situation to be like, okay, well, you're going to do that, like you said about people fearing their pensions and different things. It's like they can just hit the reset button on your whole life and go goodbye. Just going to
they can, especially now that we've seen what happened during the Freedom Convoy, is they can just turn off your bank account. And like people might not like this guy. There's a guy named Jeremy McKenzie who's a Canadian veteran, and he says a lot of shit. He has his own podcast. He talks about the government and says a lot of shit and has said some like stuff where like maybe he shouldn't have said that, but they debanked him. Scotia Bank literally like just took it, like ended his bank account, said you can't be part of this anymore because of what you're saying politically, and that should never happen ever. Okay, you can have your
fucking wild that is.
That is crazy. And the thing is, pedophiles and convicted sex offenders and murderers don't have that happen to them. So why the fuck would someone who is a dissident of the government, which his thing is like raging dissident, if anyone wants to look him up, and not a lot of people may not like him, but he's a veteran and he's stood up against the shit and is more of a man than half of you fucking people out there. So,
and if he's such a raging like fucking imbecile, then why would it make a difference whether he had a bank account or not? Like, why? If you're going like, oh, this is just some like geriatric fucking mongoloid who has no idea about anything, then why would you have to like debank him and like turn off his existence?
I'm sure we're going to be talking about worse and worse stuff on the show and how bad it's going to get, but we'll have some fun times too. So obviously there's little doubt, that something unknown crashed in the waters of Shag Harbor on that October 4th, 1969 or 67 night. It's fucking weird. I definitely think it was something. And when we're saying it's because all these different color hues, I think it was something off-worldly, or maybe some secret technology or something. But it seems like it probably was some sort of alien craft. And if they're dimensional shifting, well, or they have cloaking technology, but obviously people say that they can shift in and out of different dimensions, especially the more advanced alien races, and they could have just fucking disappeared and just fucked off, and nobody would really know the difference.
Yeah, and look, maybe it's not as some of these stories are maybe not as grandiose as maybe we'd like to believe, but there's definitely fucking something going on. There's a reason that the government and all these institutes and everything are told to like shut up or blackmailed into. Yeah, it's just very strange. Like, or the amount of times that something has happened or there's been some form of like crash or explosion and everything seems to just get fucking cleared up. Like, for example, to tie it into something that lots of people consider absolute fact, and people may get offended by me saying this, but the whole 9/11 thing.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, we've just cleared up an entire like massive crime scene. We've just ripped it all up, shipped it all out to scrapyards, melted everything down, shipped it off to all different countries, and just went like, oh, that's fine. We don't need to look into it anymore. We'll just get rid of it all.
9/11 was an inside job, and there's enough proof to prove that, because why would that, especially that one guy, take out the loan, $1 trillion or whatever? It's all set up, and people still think 9/11 wasn't perpetrated by your own government. Then you need to wake up.
You need to get help, because
get mental health
and think about how confident and like how big your balls have to be to do something so fucking obvious and go, oh, do you know what? I actually don't even care if the world finds this out, because it doesn't matter, because nothing's going to happen to me.
No, nothing. And then one thing I've learned is there's no accountability for people in power, especially, and it never really has been to an extent, but especially in our modern day world, no one is being held accountable for their actions and how they affect people's lives and hurt them and deconstruct the society that took so long for people to build and to fight for. And you know what? You just need to
wake up, little snoozy. Smell the smelling salt.
Wake
up, idiot.
Wake up. So I had a lot of fun with this. We'll be diving into some very deep UFO cases of abductions and stuff like that. Eventually, I do want to do fairly soon Travis Walton.
Yes.
But because that will be a lot of fun. I want to watch Fire in the Sky. And then it's going to be this year, even if it's in a month or two or close to the summer. I do want to do a big discussion. Once we get Jimmy Savile's fucking creepy ass out of the way, then we can, I know, I got to get all my research done this week. And then we can start getting into like the Area 51. And I do want to do a big alien abduction talk where, it's going to be like 3.5 hours, fairly long structured format. But I want to get into it. I'm going to get a lot of info.
Yeah, there's the Travis Walton thing is crazy. And Fire in the Sky, I only watched that recently for the first time properly.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. I really liked it. But that movie is kind of like things like that are, I think, what give me the impression about how it may potentially be.
I know. I've seen the clips.
Yeah, if I was to ever be a fucking abducted or have to deal with aliens, it will be that like horrifying, like fucking sterile, like what the
Well, I might want to see if Chelsea wants to watch it with me, but around that time we do Travis Walton, we should watch Fire in the Sky commentary, either just for your show or throw up on the Patreon. Yeah. Because I think it might be a good fun thing to discuss and talk about, because even for your show, it might draw people in to the whole alien aspect, and then come over to Strange Brew side and see what the fuck's going on of our strange neck of the woods. But obviously you know where to find us, First Class Horror and Strange Brew Podcast on Instagram. We almost got our Instagram fucking shut down and deleted for a cartoon dick, literally. For
again,
a Patreon
like,
episode.
It's fucking like, I don't know. It's just why sometimes I try not to get into that conversation, but like it's fucking wild. I do not understand.
Chicks are shaking their asses on Instagram, pretty much naked, and showing their nipples with these see-through bras, and that's okay. But I have literally a cartoon dick that looked very cartoonish. It was a full-on cartoon dick over the faces of 2 serial killers that I turned into, me and Billy, for a Patreon episode. And I was like, did I just lose my account that I've built up for all this fucking time? But that's the best place to go find us, is on Instagram. Obviously, you can also find the Hose Head page has stayed alive a little bit on Facebook. So just look up the Strange Brews Hose Heads. And obviously you can follow us on Facebook. I try to keep posting on there and keep it up as like that. But mostly Instagram is the place to find us. We're on BitChute and Rumble now. Odyssey for video content. We're on a bunch of stuff in case YouTube decides to become more strict in censorship. So
happen.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in. We appreciate all the fans. Something I gotta say a little more often is leave a 5-star review. Wherever you listen to us, we'd appreciate that greatly. Give us a good review if you enjoy the content. And if you don't, I have no idea why you're still listening. But yeah.
If you don't, then fuck you.
Yeah, fuck off. So obviously everybody love everybody. And stay strange, fuckers.
Wake up, little snoozy. Smell the smelling salt.